It's lovely to meet everybody. And you might hear in my voice, for some reason, I woke up this morning with a massive cold. So hopefully my voice doesn't clunk out during the session, but I absolutely promise to do my level best. So with that in mind, I'm going to share a few slides and kick us off. I'm excited to work with everybody in this space today and meet everybody. So you are welcome to this session. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. It's one of my favorite combination topics between emotional intelligence and the power of supervision. And how do they link together and how do they integrate together? What's the environment today got to do with how we are? But starting off, what I'd love to do is introduce myself a bit further. As Nicola introduced me, I'm co-managing partner at Sandown Business School, and we're a relatively new school. So we're like the new kid on the block. Doesn't mean we're not really good. We think we're really good. And we have recently been accredited with the EMCC at practitioner level for our practitioner course, and our advanced courses and master courses are now just about to be accredited with EMCC. From a flavor point of view, we also had our courses accredited with the ICF and AC because we think there's value in having an objective view in across the top 3 global associations. Part of my background is I started out in business, got really busy in business, but at the same time didn't really feel like it was a meaningful type career. Now coaching is really meaningful because I absolutely love helping people, love helping coaches stay healthy and training coaches to be healthy coaches. Absolutely love supervision and the supervision space as well. And then in a normal day-to-day too, I take a lot of C-suite executives for neuroleadership and neuroperformance coaching, particularly with the lens into emotional intelligence. I also understand who I'm in this space with. So I am sure there's plenty of expertise here. So let's not pretend that I am the self-proclaimed expert in this. I have a view. And at the same time, please, can we contract that you share and keep in dialogue with us as we move through? Is that fair? Excellent. So in order for us to set the space together, in the chat box, please, what will keep us healthy and safe in terms of contracting for? What would you like to contract in terms of working with each other? Just let's spend a moment doing that. What would you like to contract for in order for you guys and us to work well as a group today? Bouncing ideas off each other, love that. What else would you like? Really good listening, can appreciate that. Openness and curiosity, sharing and caring, love it. Respect and openness. What else would you like from each other? Bit of emotional intelligence, love that. Vulnerability, some practical tools. I actually going to let you walk away with a practical tool. I have one to share with you. Double clicking down, fab. Bit of humor, love that too. And what's the energy you're bringing today? What's the one word that would best describe the energy that you're bringing into the room? The one word that would best describe the energy you're bringing into the room. Healthy energy, calm, interested, excited. I'm excited too. Loads of curiosity and anticipation. Fab. And you might see on the screen, part of understanding emotional intelligence too is to appreciate that we are whole system individuals and we have a head brain, a heart brain, and a gut brain. So we want to be able to maximize and bring our whole system with us into how we're being today. So is it okay if we hold the contract that we've agreed? Yeah, great. And if we need to, we'll recontract through the session if somebody else has something else that's challenging and we get to recontract as we go. Is that okay with you? Brill. So let's start off with really working together. And I'm going to invite in participation through the chat box, but also please feel free to share your thoughts in, by turning on your mic and sharing with us. We want to really be, compassionate and educated in gathering the evidence for the reality for coaches today. The now normal 2023, as you know, there is a growing complexity, a growing intensity, and a growing level of challenges. And with that in mind, we need to think about the ever-growing need to actively sustain self-regulation as a coach. Would you agree? There's an activity to it. And emotional intelligence really sits in how do we drive a healthy amount of self-regulation and emotional regulation. So let's think about this. what would you say are the drivers in 2023 just on growing complexity? How would you answer that? What's driving complexity into the environment we're in today as coaches? Feel free to speak into the room. I'm seeing loads coming into the chat box. Change, anxiety, yeah. What else? AI, love that. Essential to think about. Uncertainty, big time. People, yeah. Market saturation, ChatGPT, VUCA, and the other word they use is banny, brittle, anxious. Post-lockdown anxiety. Omni-crisis, got loads of big words here. Fab. What do you think is driving growing intensity? So complexity is one thing. What's driving growing intensity? Innovation demands, brilliant. Think about it for coaches. Lack of staff, lack of control, never shutting off, yeah. Financial pressures, love that. Oversupply of information and probably oversupply of misinformation. Economic insecurity, distractions, yeah. What else? Knowledge and awareness. Very educated audience here today. I'm loving this. Absolutely. Overwhelm, yeah. Geopolitics, yeah. And what about growing challenges? Having to be very adaptable. Bureaucracy, love that. What about growing challenges? What would you add? What's driving the need to self-regulate? What are the growing challenges faced by coaches? Yes, love it. Lack of understanding of different cultures. That's a brilliant one. Equity, diversity, equality, inclusion. Brilliant. The amount of coaches, the amount of good coaches versus traditional coaches. AI, I see, is coming up loads. That is so essential. Remaining centered and aligned. Brilliant. International working. Perfect. Fear of missing out. Yeah. Coaching not always considered as a day job. Managing expectations, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, neurodiversity, brilliant. Can you see how the list could go on and on and on and on? And that is part of the challenge today. We actually need sometimes to just stop and pause and go, oh my God, how many things are we actually having to consider? What's changing in the environment? But also as coaches, just as like we are as humans, we're trying always to anticipate and forecast the future. And when we try and anticipate and forecast the future in an environment where it's ever changing, getting faster, again, we're thinking about putting our nervous system into a state of high alert, probably beyond our conscious control. Therefore, we need to think about what are the extra skills that are really going to help us keep safe and keep well as a coach. Is everybody okay so far? Are you keeping up? Excellent. So here is a bit of interpersonal neurobiology. Hopefully that's going to help land this point. As humans, we are complex systems. So from an interpersonal neurobiology approach, when we put two humans together, whatever role they're in, we're thinking about the impact between coach and client, human to human. So there's an impact anyway. You're having an impact on me today. I'm having an impact on you. So we're always swapping energy and information. So energy information produces emotion in motion. Coupled together with the fact that as humans, from an interpersonal neurobiology perspective, we are open loop systems. We're always exchanging energy and information. Therefore, we are capable of being influenced. So we always have to think about who's influencing us, what's influencing us. What is the external world in front of our eyes got to do with how we manage the world behind our eyes? And as coaches, we need to manage the world behind our eyes better than anybody else to really stay resourced. As humans, we are also capable of chaos. I mean, I don't know. I didn't expect to wake up this morning with a cold. So that would impact how I'm feeling today. It would impact my mood. It would impact my expectations for this session. That's just one thing. If the dog was sick in this house, it would impact me. We never know what's going to impact us. If I'm late for a client, that's going to impact us. If I get bad news, that's going to impact us. We are chaos capable, but we're also capable of self-regulating. So we need to acknowledge the fact that not only are our clients chaos capable, but we're also chaos capable. And that is okay. So it's about normalizing that too. The other thing we are is social engagement systems. We need to belong. We love each other. We need to feel like we're part of the gang, part of a group, belonging to our tribe, having an input, feeling valued. We are biological complex systems, which means we come along with the package of neurowiring that sometimes is in service of us and sometimes is not serving us very well. Biological. So what's happening in the world behind our eyes really impacts the world in front of our eyes. So as coaches, I'm sure you'd agree, you want to have the best impact on your client, the healthiest impact on your client. Coupled together with the fact that our mind and physical body behave according to two different sets of laws. Our physical body behaves according to the laws of Newtonian physics, and our mind behaves according to the laws of quantum physics. And those two don't mix. So we need to keep ourselves well as a physical system, and we also need to tidy up our mind, have a space to go to clear out our thinking, have the space to go to be able to work out our thinking, also have a space to go to be able to make sure that we can make sense of how we're feeling. That self-regulation piece doesn't sometimes happen on its own. We probably need to partner with other people. We also come with a history, evolutionary echoes. And this is about the, I would say, 20th iteration of me to be able to even speak up in front of people. Certainly wasn't how I was raised. I've had to really work hard on my own rewiring to be even get myself into a position where I would, actually even have the thought, maybe I could build my own coaching school. 10 years ago, I would have gone, you are absolutely insane. Never happen. I'll never do it. So we need to think about all of these things. Now, when we put all those things together, the reality is, as coaches, we're humans. So we need to be better ordered and better at making sure we are in charge of our own wiring, being in charge of our own neuroplasticity, and particularly in how we manage our perception of what's happening in the world in front of our eyes. How many misperceptions or myth perceptions inform the stories we tell ourselves, where we might be in threat more than we're in reward. Big part of the training in our school is that we help coaches navigate. How do we make sure we are making sure we're in reward and our clients are in reward as much as possible while we're helping them unpack the myth perceptions and misperceptions that could be going on for them. So what does that mean for us as coaches? Or I'm curious, what sense is everybody making out of what I'm saying? Any takers? Speak. Feel free to speak into the room. Am I talking gibberish, or are you happy to understand what I'm saying? What are you thinking? I'm all ears. Not the time to be shy. Let's have you.
I think it's a wonder sometimes that we're able to communicate with each other, and the fact that everything that you've gone through, and the fact that we're probably slightly distracted, at least I am, by our dog in the background. I think what you're saying is that if our clients are only as good as we can, the things that we can give them. So if we take care of ourselves, then we can be in a better place to take care of our clients.
Love that, Nicola. Nice to see you, by the way. Love that. Who else would like to share? Feel free to speak. I see some stuff coming in the chat box.
Yeah, hi, Richella.
Hiya.
I think that it's kind of modeling what we want to help our clients with in many times, because we are all the same and our clients are also complex and chaotic, and they also have to mostly be with other people in their lives. And so we want to model what we kind of wish for them in a way.
We do. So again, there's a lot of gravitas to how do we just go, am I okay as a coach? Am I okay? And how do I keep myself okay in a world that's not okay? And at the same time, have a healthy impact on my clients. So much goes into this. But it is nice to start to understand that we can understand, even from a neuroscience point of view, how our nervous system actually sometimes can be a bit of a malfunction, arrive with the wrong story at the wrong time. So again, how do we tidy that up? How do we clean our act up as we move forward? Maybe having many coaching relationships, maybe you're doing one-to-one or one-to-many. So in that human-to-human dynamic, we want to just be respectful that our emotions get piqued positively and negatively. Our emotions get piqued in both ways. At the same time, our emotions also drive behavior. So it's to stop and pause and think, that's the reality of what's going on in our whole system, and how can we help ourselves? And emotional intelligence is one of the things that we can do to help ourselves well. The reality check for coaches. So here you get to be a bit more participatory like you already are. We've designed for Sandown Business School a tool that we use with our students, that what do mentally strong coaches actually do? So are you up for a little game? Yeah? So let's read these, and you're going to put in the chat box, how satisfied are you in each of these areas today? And out of that, you should be coming away with thinking, actually, I could do more of this and less of this, and what would it give me to really just have a reality test on what are we going to embrace going forward? The obvious one for most coaches is that they need to reflect as a practice. So how satisfied are you with your reflection practice? Answers in the chat box, 1 to 10. 1 being least satisfied, 10 being most satisfied. Great. I think that's an obvious one, to be fair. Fabulous. And again, the question is, if it's a 7, what does it take to get it to an 8? What would it give you to get a 7 to an 8? If it's low, what would it give you to make it a bit higher? And this is not about perfection. This is about reality. What are the things that make me mentally strong as a coach? What about your toleration for discomfort? How satisfied are you with your toleration for discomfort? I believe we've got top of the class here today. Good one. What about your ability to critically think? Your ability to critically think. Interesting. What about your ability to be productive? Your ability to be productive. What about how much energy you spend wisely? How do you spend your energy? And remember, your energy sometimes is hooked to power. Where do you give your power away? You will leak energy. So how wisely do you spend your energy? Interesting. What about stamina? Have you got the stamina it takes for the environment we're in today? How would you rate your stamina? What about your enjoyment of time alone? What about your willingness to fail? Brilliant job. I'm just going to read the other ones and you get the gig. So keep an eye to yourself. Coaches also need the ability to move on. Can I leave a session in the session and get on with my own business? Can I mind my own business? So I'm not carrying around client stories with me, or they're not keeping me awake at night. Am I expressive enough? Do I emotionally express my feelings? Am I emotionally expressive enough? How do I emotionally express myself? And again, emotional expression comes in so many different packages today. It could be, the best way I emotionally express myself is on the golf course, believe it or not. Mightn't be into a reflection journal, mightn't be talking to anybody else. It looks different for everybody, but have you many ways to emotionally express yourself? How do you invest in your energy? What does that look like? I actually get energy from doing things like today. So that's another investment in my own energy. So thank you all for that. How am I in my response ability? My response ability. And I put a pause between response and ability. What about my ability to be empathetic? My ability to be empathetic. My ability to use my intuition. My gut, my wisdom. Do I bring it with me? Or do I start off every day forgetting that I have intuition to resource myself with? Do I have a tidy gut, for example? What about grace? And I've put grace in capital letters because for me it means gratitude, resilience, agility, calm, and energy. And have I the ability to read emotions? Have I the ability to actually read emotions, either digitally, live online? What does that even look like? What do you think of that list? what mentally strong coaches need to do. It's quite the list, isn't it, though? Go for it, Dominica. You going to say something?
Look, I'm a mentor. I'm not a coach. And I do I differentiate it because I cannot be coach for the reason it is very, let's say, far away from my personality, let's put it this way. And I'm just wondering, because there are a lot of, apart from that, this is a different technique, but there are lots of things that are in common. And I was just wondering whether your speech today or our discussion today is also relevant for mentors. Thank you.
I think anytime you put two humans together, we're having the same conversation, coaching and coach mentoring. Yeah.
Okay.
How we apply the skills will look different, that's for sure. Keeping a clean coaching role versus, being able to navigate coaching and mentoring at the same time. Yeah, it's a skill and expertise. Love it. Elena?
I'm just looking at the list and I'm thinking, if we would remove the word coaches and put human beings there, it will
Excellent.
be still all applied. There is not any skill there in the list that is regarding like really professional skill of a coach.
Yeah, they're people skills, they're human skills. And part of doing the exercise is to realize actually coaches and mentors and coach mentors need to be better than anybody at doing this. And you're right, it's the human to human part that we're really landing the point on. So thanks for bringing that into the room. Totally get it. All of these require active emotional regulation. And the challenge for coaches and coach mentors is that coaches are the lead of the emotional regulation when they're in front of clients. They're leading the energy, they're leading it. So again, they have a big responsibility in terms of the energy that they're impacting their client with. And when we think about sometimes learning how to be coach mentors, some schools can take quite a logical approach to how they teach coaching, where it might be around typical types of agendas around change and situations and problems and relationships. And the agendas feel quite head-led and feel solvable versus the environment we're in today, where difficult challenges for coaches actually are quite biological, where we get to think about how is the client behaving and how is that impacting the coach? How is the coach behaving and how is that impacting the client? So it's to be respectful for, one of the terms we use in SBS is how you are is how you coach. How you are is how you coach. The willingness you have to work on yourself, the willingness you have to keep working on yourself, the willingness you have to be able to admit sometimes you might be more vulnerable than you think you are, that it's okay to be human. That actually, it's the thing to embrace the best about you. You will have your own fingerprint style with this in mind. But again, we don't want to pretend we're logical. We are biological whole systems. So there's so many extra things informing our ability to coach well and stay well and healthy as a coach. How you are is how you coach. At the same time, we've got to be understanding the concept of emotional intelligence. And I assume for many, this is going to be a reminder. It is defined as your ability to recognize and understand emotions in yourself and others. And the key is your ability to use this awareness to manage your behaviors and relationships in a meaningful way. So it's to know it and to do it and regulate it and be active with it. That's what's key. So what happens to you if you get emotionally hijacked? What happens to you if you're peaked away from being the best version of you? What happens to you? How kind are you to yourself? How compassionate are you to others? What is the challenges that can happen to us as coaches that can peak us away from being the kind of coaches we want to be? Maybe ego gets in the way. Maybe identity gets in the way. Maybe power gets in the way. Maybe status gets in the way. And it's not all bad, but we've got to always think about, we've got to manage our whole system, and emotional intelligence really helps us do that really well. And Daniel Goldman is one of the world's leading experts. And there's plenty you can do to research and get really good at this. But for us, we want to also be mindful of the reality, past and present, where there was a huge value put on IQ versus EQ. And how is that being addressed and challenged? Who is at the top of organizations today? Who are the best coaches today? What's informing that? And they're two intelligences that we need to place the right amount of value on them. So which do you put more value on, out of curiosity? Which do you put more value on, IQ or EQ? And they're not the only intelligences, I'm aware of that too. We could go on with the list and list. Which one do you put more value on, IQ or EQ? So again, we love that Maya Angelou quote. People forget what you said, people forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So again, that sits in emotional intelligence. So we want to be respectful of. A lot of the environment we're in today rewards IQ. And a lot of the research is saying a lot of the most successful people in the world are really able to balance well EQ and IQ together. So we want to know, and we want to take advantage and maximize definitely both, particularly in an environment where we're discovering outside interventions that is sometimes helping us and sometimes not helping us. So from a real ease, I've often worked with clients and said, how many emotions do you use on a daily basis? And my client yesterday said 7 or 8. And we know how many emotions that there actually are. So how does that inform the story we tell ourselves? How does that inform how we resource ourselves when there's so many emotions to be able to put color into how we speak? Who speaks best about what? How do we understand the stories we tell ourselves? Where do we really love to put our energy and attention? So that emotional wheel was designed in the 1980s, and it's really understanding what else is going on within our nervous system that's creating neuroceptions more towards reward than threat, or more towards threat than reward. And how is that hijacking us away from being the best version of ourselves, or giving us a good leverage to move forward and really have a healthy impact and really be with our clients and partner with our clients in a proper, healthy co-regulation space where you can actually sit with them and help them walk away from you feeling more resourced from being with you than they were without your help. That takes a real skill of emotional intelligence. So for us, we want to be making sure that high impact coaching and high impact coaches have highly effective emotional intelligence, highly effective functioning emotional intelligence. So not only do you need to understand that you're emotionally intelligent, but you also need to be mindful that it's effectively functioning. And what that means is that just like if you were, let's use a metaphorical example. Did you ever go to the gym and see the people who go to the gym and they only train their shoulders? Do you know them people? You know them? And they walk around and you're just thinking, yeah. Or you might see people go to the gym and it's leg day every day and they've done nothing about their upper body. So emotional intelligence is making sure that you have the inner muscle in your whole system, that not only is it well developed, that it is also toned. So just like going to the gym, you need to go to the gym knowing that you've got cardio capacity, that you've got strength capacity, but you've also got flexibility. So it's knowing and noticing I've got the muscles, they're resourced, and they're effectively functioning. And what that looks like in practice is coaches with well-developed emotional intelligence can differentiate each emotion, putting the emotion into the correct cluster and then intentionally responding to the situation. So if you were thinking about today, for example, if I had low integration emotional intelligence, I could have said to myself an hour ago, I'm feeling nervous in the pit of my stomach. Now I could have told myself that's fear, or I could have said to myself, actually, I'm excited. I'm going to meet so many coaches I've never met before. I'm also delighted and in awe that I'm after getting myself into a position where I can represent my school. I'm also delighted and excited and hopeful that the information lands. So can you see how I've made a completely different story that can be as equally threat as equally reward? But I have to be able to tell myself the right story. So I've got to pause and actually connect to, plug into a much more fruit salad approach where I can pick out the different emotions and go, oh, here's actually what's happening in practice. That's high integration. When I can actually start to work out and put language into my own mind to tell myself the right story, that settles my system, where I actually get back into my prefrontal cortex, managing my own brain, where I can stay engaged and make sure that my emotional brain doesn't take over. Do you know what I mean? You with me so far? Brilliant. So there is incidences where I get into smoothie type operation. And there is incidences where, and 90% of the time, I'd say I'm much better at that high integration. So there's no amount of perfection, but it is starting to know and notice, when does my state change? The state of me. How do I regulate the state of being that I'm in? Mind and body. So really important. So the same ingredients, not necessarily the same experience or benefits. So somebody with a highly developed emotional intelligence can hold two polar opposite emotions at the same time and be okay. But we still need to be able to make sure that we keep our emotional intelligence functioning well. So Reuven Bar-On was the brilliant Israeli psychologist who did 20 years of research and data to come up with EQI. The latest validated assessment was updated in 2011. The intellectual property is owned by MHS. But the benefit is that this scientifically validated report assessment that can be done really does help give us a start point benchmark on, how am I managing myself? How am I managing others? How am I managing the environment? Over 5 easy composites: 2 in self, 1 in others, and 1 in the environment, 1 on the environment. So it really helps us start to understand that emotional intelligence is 15 really easy skills to build, But first of all, we need to figure out, where is our ultimate start point and what would it give us to actually work on our emotional intelligence as a coach. Now, we put emotional intelligence into our courses because we think it's so essential, let alone the fact that we use it with our supervision clients, because we know that coaches, again, are having to operate in a world where you need a completely different resourcing system in the world behind your eyes to help you stay healthy and well and have the right impact on your clients. That's the lens that you might be familiar with from an emotional intelligence 2.0. But I've broken them down into a much easier slide for us to be able to read together and do some work on together. You up for that? So there's 2 in self. There's 1, as I said, in interpersonal, and then 2 from the environment. So from a self-perception point of view, everyone needs to be able to view the reality of their self-perception. How do I see myself? So within self-perception, it's broken down into 3 really easy emotional intelligence skills. 1 is self-regard, 1 is self-actualization, and the 3rd is emotional self-awareness. So those 3 go together. From another self point of view, we have self-perception going along with self-expression. So underneath self-expression, we have emotional expression. We have assertiveness, and we have independence. So from a self-expression point of view, those cluster together really well. And that might be surprising, particularly around assertiveness, because a lot of people are taught assertiveness is about, how do I assert myself with myself? But actually, you think about leveling up as a coach. Assertiveness is, how do I assert myself with myself? First, how do I do that well? Who's in charge of asserting my own values? Who's in charge of asserting my ethics and practice? Mixed with that, how do I keep independence? How do I make sure that if my client is emotional, that I stay independent and I'm still willing to challenge if necessary? Or do I get peaked away from, do the coaching process and maybe do too much mentoring? Do I want to solve quickly in order to move my client through their emotion? How comfortable am I at understanding emotion in motion, energy in motion? So the 2 from self, again, the first point of understanding emotional intelligence and you figuring out where you are is to really think about, from a self-perception and self-expression point of view, which 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, or 6 are the most important for you in terms of you managing yourself going forward? Which one would you need to work on more? Any takers? Anybody willing to be brave and say which one they'd like to work more on? You forget that I'm a coach, so I'm comfortable in silence. I'll let you think about it. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking of self-regard as something I would need to work on more. I have been working on it, but it could get some more work done.
Brilliant. And what would it give you to work on it more?
More balance, and something you spoke about before, like do I take what happens in my coaching sessions and does that invade my life? So I think that this would help.
Brilliant. Thank you. Anybody else? Which one would you like, or do you feel like it would be worth investing your energy to work on as a coach or coach mentor? Yes, Elena?
It's kind of difficult to distinguish them all. They kind of go in hand together. You cannot just like really master one and like be totally trash another one. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it's the same level. So once you upgrade all three of those.
That's a really good point. So working on one does impact the others, that's for sure. At the same time, though, we have to think about these actually like independent muscles, independent skills. So what would it give us to really work on assertiveness and independence together? What's the difference between the two? Independence is a funny one because, again, if it was you and me, Elena, and we were, I think of a simple example. If it was you and me, Elena, and we were going to, hang out at the weekend and you wanted to order Chinese and I wanted to order an Indian. But at the same time, if I knew that you would not be happy and be emotional and moody, not getting your way, I might capitulate my independence and not fight for what I want. So what does that mean for us as a coach? So of course we can work with emotional intelligence to bring it to our clients. But again, we've got to be leveling up ourselves in order to be managing ourselves as coaches in a completely different way. Now, what about interpersonal relationships? Interpersonal relationships is broken down into interpersonal relationships, empathy, and social responsibility. So interpersonal is mutually satisfying relationships, give and take. And some coaches are natural born givers. Some coaches are natural born takers. What does that look like in practice? And how do you be both mutually satisfying, but still have professional boundaries? Mutually satisfying relationships. What does that look like in terms of fair exchange? What about empathy? How can you be empathetic and compassionate, but also be empathetic and compassionate to yourself? How do you balance both of those? So these are skills to build. Social responsibility. What does an overdeveloped social responsibility muscle look like? Overdeveloped is nearly worse than underdeveloped. It's harder to turn it down than it is to turn it on. What about decision making? So we're going from now into the environment. So decision making, problem solving. What are you like in solving problems when your emotions are peaked? Can you start to differentiate and tell yourself the right story? Can you start to slow yourself down? What happens to your reality testing? Do you reality test, or does your emotions cloud your decision making? Do you make a decision too fast? Impulse control. Do you make a right decision versus a fast decision? Which do you want to do more? When your client gets peaked, do you want to solve them, or do you want to take them out of their emotion? Or are you actually willing to wait and let the emotions settle and work out and help regulate and lead the regulation space? From a stress management perspective, how flexible are you with your thoughts and your emotions and adapting? What does that impact you in terms of your own stress tolerance? How do you cope? How do you actually cope? Do you cope with the same mechanisms that a lot of humans use? Or do you actually cope with a healthy understanding of how do I work on the world behind my eyes and anchor myself to the things that actually give me the right nervous system tone that will help me? And what about optimism? Have I got the right healthy balance of optimism? Am I a glasses half full and I keep topping up as I go along? So independently, these all are separate skills to build. but at the same time, they cluster together. So what I'd love you to spend a minute doing is figuring out what are the most important skills for coaches. So come up with the top 4. So don't do one thing for me. Pick the top 4 emotional intelligence skills for coaches and write them in the chat box. But don't press return yet. And let's do a little assessment. What are the top 4 for coaches today? Type it into the chat box. And I'm going to give you a minute to think about it and put it in. But don't press send, please. And this is a test of your impulse control. Fun game. It's harder than it looks, actually, to do it. To not press return, I mean. Nice one. Great. When you're ready, press return. Let's have a read. Read each other's. Spend a moment to read each other's. Great. So what did you notice about doing that exercise? Who's willing to share? Now that you've read what everybody said, what did you notice about doing that exercise, please? Who'd like to speak into the room?
I can speak.
Yeah.
So I noticed that everybody has kind of a little bit different, but they're mostly the same. Well, I guess they're part of what it is, but I think that we can't decide. I think that they're all equally important. And maybe at different times or for different coaches or for different situations, you can choose which ones you need now. But in general, I don't see how we can decide.
Good answer. Like it. Anybody else willing to share? There's no judgment here. This is our space together.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, far away.
I think it's a great example of what you were talking about before, which is everybody processes things in different ways based on the information that's around them, what's going through their head. So it's no surprise that everybody chose something different because everyone interprets information in different ways.
Love it. Thank you, Alex. Yeah. Charlie, I think you were going to say something. I hope I got your name right.
Yeah. I suppose it's more of a question. I wonder whether these are reflective of how people consider themselves as their strengths as a coach, or whether they're areas to work on. So,
good question. Yeah. Valuable. Yes. Speak into the room if you're ready. Yeah.
I think it's also very easy to fall in the trap that if we are coaches and we are working for a client, then our top skills should be empathy and, everything that is directed to another person, and underestimate the importance of directing inside of you. And I love the quote on your previous slide that the way you coach is the way you are, or something like that.
How you are is how you coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think part of the realization with this is, and thanks everybody for your part of the realization is that you will already have some of these developed. Some of them will be overdeveloped. Some of them will be underdeveloped. And that's the whole point. You need effective function across them all. And effective function is starting to understand, actually, I've got 2 or 3 of these skills that I use all the time. And it might be that you're using 6 or 7 all of the time. But what does that tell us? Well, first thing it tells you is that you have resources within you that you're not using. So it might be like if I was going into the shop with the tenor, real emotional intelligence is if that there isn't anything in the shop that I don't need to buy, that I walk back out the door with the tenor, that I haven't spent it just because there's something else that piqued my interest or I got distracted by, or I suddenly decided I want it. So again, effective function is what's important. So there's a balance and effective function. So we need to be balanced and effectively functioning. So it is really healthy to do a reality check across them all and go, actually, here are 6 out of the 15 I use all the time. What would it give me to actually build the other ones? And then what would it look like to build them, tone them, and really understand what does effective function look like in my coaching practice, let alone in my life? Does that make sense? And then how do I bring emotional intelligence to my clients? Amazing. So this is just an example of, if you haven't seen it before, it's an emotional intelligence assessment report. Obviously, it hasn't got a name on it. It's just showing us. But when you do an emotional intelligence 2.0 assessment, as a coach, you can start to, because you're in a leadership role, whether you like it or not, you can get an assessment of your effective function across all. So where do you think, if the overall EI for this participant was 83, and you can see the gold bar, and the gold bar is the standard of leadership since this in 2011 was scientifically validated and became a report that people used, where do you think overall EI for coaches needs to be along the top scale there? 70 to plus 130. Where do you think is acceptable for coaches? What would you say? You can stick an answer in the chat box. What do you think? Believe it or not, it's plus 130 and balanced and effectively functioning. Because we're in an environment with so much biological information, we're getting so many signals all the time. We're systems connected to other systems. We have emotion in motion all over the place. So it is important that we not only make sure that our EI is built, that it is now effectively functioning and now balanced. So from a coach perspective, you need to be checking in on this periodically every single year and checking in on, how am I doing with this? And that is part of what healthy supervision practice looks like. So for us, we want to be thinking about the reality of coaches today, and we mentioned AI earlier, is we are slipping into an environment where we're going to be invited to compete against Alexa-style coaches. But we need to be thinking about, actually, why do people actually need coaching today? Why do people need coach mentoring today? So there are a lot of different emotive agendas that clients come with. And that is the fascination of where coaching is moving to. It's moving way out of the logical. And a lot of people can use their own self-coaching tools, and they never needed Alexa anyway, or Alexa type style coaches. They could use self-coaching tools either way, whether you were going to have the willingness or readiness to actually get after yourself. That's a whole other issue. But the benefit of working with another human is that you can have a safe space to go to work on emotive agendas. Like, I'm feeling ashamed. Like, I mightn't feel like I'm worthy enough. I can't imagine having that conversation with a robot, can you? Not really. Lack of what? Fear of missing out, FOPO. What other emotive agendas would clients come with today? How would you answer that? What other types of emotive agendas would clients come with today? They're not counseling agendas either. Feeling of inadequacy. Love that one. Fear and isolation. Fabulous. What other emotive agendas? Now here's the real value in coaching. Yeah. Coaching and mentoring. Yeah. Imposter syndrome, rejection, PTSD. Yeah. Fab. Lack of connection. Brilliant. Imposter syndrome. Just about to release a big article around imposter syndrome. Needing of affirmation, validation. So again, we know that most humans value the same types of things. So what blocks that? What gets in the way of that? Where are the blind spots around that? And then how do we manage ourselves as coaches to stay sane and healthy? Which brings us to the value of supervision. And I love that picture. It's about priming the walls. So you think about your internal state. It's like priming yourself so that the work you do sticks. And the other phrase that we use in Sandow Business School is healthy coaches coach healthily. Do you love it? Healthy coaches coach healthily. Such an obvious thing to say, but then again, it's like, I don't say it to myself often enough. Healthy coaches coach healthily. So for us at Sandow Business School, myself and Fiona, my business partner, are always up in the business of supervision because we're training coaches, let alone taking our own clients. So for us, supervision is creating a space for your client, you as a coach, to come and have a supervision of what's going on for you. What is all the emotional data that's out there? How is that informing how you are, let alone the other intelligences? So it is less about it being a supervisory space than a really healthy space to go to unpack what are you thinking, what are you feeling, how are you going to get and help your clients. And as supervisors, we're there in best service of you and your clients. We're always thinking about the impact you're having on your clients. What is your client story? How is that informing you? How is that informing your practice? What's getting in the way of that? And making sure that you walk away from us feeling really much more resourced. But also bringing the color back into your coaching. Making sure that you're not doing the same thing on repeat all the time. What is it that you're getting a blind spot to? What are the habits you've developed? Where is the dark side of what you're at? What are the accelerants and triggers and stimulants and things you shouldn't be doing versus the things you should be doing? So again, it's a really healthy, non-judgmental space to unpack all of that. The definition of supervision, the process by which a coach, mentor, consultant, with the help of a supervisor who's not working directly with the client, can attend to understanding both the client system themselves as a part of their client, coach, mentor, system, and transform their work. Supervision also does this by attending to the transformation of the relationship between the supervisor and the coach and to the wider context in which the work is happening. So it's working in service of the coach and the client all the time. So there's a skill to this too. And I would invite anyone who really loves coaching to become a supervisor. It is an amazing extra additional source of information where you really start to understand what does projection of your client onto you look like? How are you projecting onto your client? What does transference look like? What's energetic transference? What's counter transference? There's so many things to be thinking about. But sometimes it is just pausing to say that even supervision is changing. And supervision is just a healthy thing for us to be able to do as coaches. So in 1987, there was a lot of clinical supervision done, particularly in the more, sensitive type human to human services, where supervision was quite normative, formative, and restorative, which it is, and more. How have we developed a muscle for supervision, particularly for coaches and coach mentors? Now we're all the way in 2023. So we're developing the qualitative, developmental, and resourcing parts. And how do we make sure, though, that the qualitative helps keep the coach honest and courageous? I love that. How do you help keep the coach honest and courageous? Attending to what they are not seeing, not hearing, and not allowing themselves to feel and not say. There's loads in that. Looks at where and how the coach may need to refer to the client for more specialized help. Developmental helps the coach to develop their internal supervisor and become a better reflective partner. And there's so many creative ways we do that. That is so fun. Key part of continuous professional development and action of learning of the coach, and also resourcing, provides the supportive space for the coach to process what they've absorbed from their clients and their client systems. So again, sometimes it's about teaching the coach, particularly when I get new supervision clients, it's teaching them how to be good clients, good supervision clients. And then you're going, oh yeah, now it's a really cool space to go to be able to really figure out how do I really level up the whole time and stay healthy. This is the 7-eyed model for supervision, just to give us a reminder of the biological information that you are managing to hold. So you as a supervisor even are swapping energy and information with your coach's clients, and you're getting all of that data. So the internal relationships, the external relationships, the filters, the biases, the judgments, the assumptions, the agitations, the frustrations, the micro stresses. What else is going on that you need to be taking account of? What are the beliefs that underpin? What are the values aligned? What are the ethics and practice? How is that informing where we are? What are the trends that are going on? So that's a 7-eyed model of supervision that we work to and work towards to really get an understanding of it. And lastly, it's thinking about toleration of stress as a coach and maximization of eustress as a coach. So stress is one term, but there is a difference between distress and eustress. And as coaches, we want to invite in the joy of why we do what we do. I love helping people. So that's my eustress. I'm in it. I'm willing to challenge myself. So I don't want to get overwhelmed by the distress that I can also feel by maybe not doing a good job, or the energetic and emotional information that can form in my whole system. So supervision is where that inquiry takes place. And supervision with emotional intelligence information brings us from here to here, for sure. So it's empowering that coach sensitivity to energetic information effectively through the lifetime of the coach-client relationship or relationships. So there's so much in that. My invitation to you is to really think about the value of supervision mixed with the power of emotional intelligence. How do they all work together as well? This is a model we use in supervision that I'm going to invite you to take home. So it's about understanding our supervision emotional intelligence drivers. So you saw and you can see the healthy coaches coach healthily. So as an easy model to say to ourselves, we want to always prime for the next session. And prime for us means pause. Pause and really appreciate our client. Pause and really appreciate our own state, and then regulate our own state. Reset ourselves, bring our mental strength in, bring our emotional strength to the fore, integrate our whole system, head, heart, and gut. Be mindful of the impact that we have and make sure we're in a healthy state to coach, and make sure that we are really ready for embodied communication. So bringing that balance between head, heart, and gut. So with that in mind, thank you for your time, energy, and attention. I'm going to stop the share there. I'm conscious of the time.
Well, Richella, that's been amazing. I've really appreciated the different ways you can look at things, and that value of supervision as well. So everybody on the call knows, supervision is a key part of what we're looking for accreditation. So it was really interesting to hear you discuss that in such a multifaceted way. I wonder if I can ask you just a last question before we head into networking, Richella. We've had some really great input from people in the chat and some really great engagement from everybody here. What are you yourself taking away from this session?
I mean, I love for sure seeing a really engaged and informed audience. That's for sure. So, and I can also tell that there is an energy for this. So I really appreciate that. So sometimes it's good to connect to my own peers. I mean, I'm no better than anybody else. I'm still learning, evolving, and growing the whole time and trying to do my best. So I think that is the energy in motion. So it's so important that we're sticking together as a community too. So it's, again, for me, it's like always want to be in the tribe.
Oh, that's good. Well, in that case, I'm going to thank each and every one of you, as well as Richella, for engaging so amazingly. Thank you for collectively adding to our knowledge and our awareness in this space, and to constructively challenge and to take on new ideas. It's been a fantastic session. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.